Talking About podcast. It is Grant and I. We are actually together. Yes, we can touch each other this episode. We won't. We won't. We will. We'll save. We'll save the. Save anything crazy. But
the link is in the bio.
Yeah, the link is in the bio. That's right. So doing things a little bit different. We are here at Grant's residence right now. I'm in town. Ethan gets married tomorrow, so we are here. Ethan's not able to join us. He's busy doing wedding stuff. We won't hold him to that one. He's actually not getting a colonoscopy today.
He's gonna save that for next week.
He's saving that for next week.
Saving that for next week.
For next week, that's right. But we are here. It's gonna be a little bit of a different show. We won't do a whole lot of recapping of what happened last week. We might talk a little bit about what games we got going on here on tomorrow and Sunday. Really the only game, and really frankly the only game that matters, is the absolute butt kicking, Grant, that NDSU did in Brookings on Saturday.
I think butt kicking and ass whooping is being generous to what butt kickings and ass whoopings are, because I tried to upload that game to a certain website, and they did not allow it.
Wow.
Because police charges should have been filed against North Dakota State for what they did to South Dakota State on Saturday.
You know what, though? I would say that South Dakota State, that's been a long time coming. That was the first time that NDSU in this run that they have beaten the Jackrabbits that bad since 1992.
No shit.
Yes. That is correct.
33 years.
Yep. And it was from start to finish. It was a thorough butt whooping of epic proportions. That game going in, NDSU, I think at the start of the week was a 3.5-point favorite. By the time that game kicked off, when it was figured out that Chase Mason, the South Dakota State quarterback, wasn't going to play, that line jumped up to 7.5. I had friends in our group chat that I'm in. We were talking, and they were saying that this game is not going to be close. NDSU is going to win by a lot, regardless of if Chase Mason plays. And that went out that proved to be true. You know, there's some Jackrabbit people saying that it would have been a different game if Mason has played. Would they have been able to score a couple of more points? Yes, but Chase Mason isn't playing defense. Chase Mason isn't the passer that Cole Payton is, which I've also seen in the media of people referring to saying Chase Mason and Cole Payton are comparable, which is an absolute joke. Right now, as it stands, Cole Payton is the by far walk-away, run-away favorite for the Walter Payton Award. Mm-hmm. And they were clicking on all cylinders. You know, going into this game, and we talked about it last week on the preview, is the defense has struggled a little bit getting off to a fast start. Well, they answered the call. 3 straight 3-and-outs. There was nothing going for South Dakota State. The defense, they looked like they were just playing loose. They were playing free. And I don't know if it was just getting away from the dome, which, in this run where you've seen, have they been really good in the dome? Yes, but you've seen a lot of their losses actually come in the dome. When they get away from Fargo, that's kind of where you see them play some of their better games, especially in these bigger games where they just come out and they play looser, they play freer. I think there's maybe just not that added pressure of playing in front of the dome. But to see them go into Brookings and end a 33-game win streak, home win streak that the Rabbits had, and to end it that way they did.
It's funny. This was the year, Dylan, of 33-game home winning streaks ending.
Yeah. Georgia.
When Alabama took them down, and then this past Saturday with NDSU took South Dakota State down, and you kind of look at it, and that is the way that NDSU is in the FCS is the way Alabama is in the FBS. They're the big bad wolf. Everybody should want to take them down. Georgia had a cute little 2-year run where they were on top. South Dakota State had a cute little run where they were on top. But they're not the top dogs. They're not the Tide. They're not the Bison. The real team took the winning streak down of the wannabe team who looks up to them. and
Yeah.
who wants to be them compared to the program who is the standard.
The program that lives rent free.
And
the other programs yes.
Yes, because South Dakota State wants to be North Dakota State, and I don't care about what the people of Georgia say. They want to be Alabama.
Yeah.
They want to be viewed that way. Kirby Smart runs his program that way, but you cannot replicate that.
No. I think Kirby Smart's players probably are a little bit better race car drivers than Nick Saban's were.
Yes,
But that won't be. We won't discuss that part any further. But it was back to the whole Chase Mason thing. It was it was pretty well established. I think it was disappointing on South Dakota State's, and I think that's where you saw the coaching mismatch. Dan Jack is his first year as head coach. He's done a really good job, especially to really kind of galvanize that group where they lost a lot of players and really had to supplement players in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
They had to do that, and that's tough job. And I mean, we're going to be getting into discussing here in a little bit, talking about, do you really want to be a college coach? As we've seen some more coaches get fired, but he's done a good job. But the game plan just didn't make a whole lot of sense because Chase Mason came out for warm-ups in a boot, so that tells me that you knew he wasn't going to be the guy going in, and the game plan is it just looked like they just had no juice. Like the team just knew they were going to get their butt kicked.
Well, teams and players know if quarterbacks can or if they can't play right away.
Mm-hmm.
And if Chase Mason comes out in that game in a boot, that means they saw and they knew, like you said, he wasn't going to play the whole week. So that whole week of practice, South Dakota State knew what their game plan was going to be and what their backup quarterback can or can't do. And then also, when you're going up against the style of defense you're playing against in North Dakota State, a possible backup can't get the job done. Or if he is limited in his skill set and you're going up against an elite defense that makes you play left-handed, maybe South Dakota State's backup quarterback was already playing left-handed, which is why he's the backup. And then now you're thrust into being the guy against that defense in a rivalry game where they haven't beat you on your home field since President Trump's first term. They're going to be pissed off and they're going to want to come take your head off. And that lack of confidence coming into the game, it was over before it started.
Yeah.
That game last Saturday was over on Wednesday afternoon.
And the final score was 38-7. NDSU took the foot off the gas in the second half. They looked across the sideline and said, there's no way this team is beating them. We don't have to open up the playbook. What we have is working. We're just going to try and get in and get out. And, the way the defense is playing.
That game, that second half of that game Saturday, you know what it reminded me of? Iowa, Michigan, 2023 Big Ten title.
Yes.
26-0, 23-0.
I think it was 26-0.
Should have been 45-0.
Mm-hmm.
People, Iowa fans, to kind of soften the blow, they can say, oh, well, yeah, we held them in check. Michigan, they were the one team, they struggled in the playoff against us. No, they knew they had this game over, and they were going to just come in, be vanilla, establish the line of scrimmage, shut Iowa down. They couldn't do anything about it. That's what this game was.
Yeah. Well, in that game, even like our good friend Brandon Walker was talking about, they only beat Iowa by 20. It's like, well, that's because Michigan looked over at the opposite sideline and saw Deacon Hill and was like, that guy ain't beating us.
This guy ain't beating us. I mean, the Big Ten championship game was the week before, and I'm sorry, but Brandon Walker is just an unattractive fat loser from Mississippi
that deserved
to see the game
end right in front
of his face. I hope Mississippi State does not win a game the rest of the year.
I don't want to say that.
I do, because I just enjoy him being miserable.
That is perks of it.
Yes.
But I also think I really like Jeff Lebby. I think he's done a good job. I think he's tasked with a very tough position.
Yes.
But in that sense, yes. Do they deserve to not because Brandon Walker is a fan? Probably.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna talk. Jeff Levy, his job, I don't believe is gonna be in question here. As we got the lights to turn back on.
So we have the automatic switch on in this room, and after a while, when there's no motion, the lights turn on. So I changed the setting to stay on.
There we go. But it was announced Sunday night, Brian Kelly, after getting blown off his home field, after losing to Texas A&M 49-25, he was let go, which proves again and again that the best job in America is a fired college football coach. $54 million to not be the coach. And this was one that, if you had any sort of brain cells, I think there was some hope. There was some thought that, well, he's Brian Kelly. He wins everywhere he goes. He's going to find a way to win. But there was just something about him and LSU. It just never meshed, Grant. From the time he said family, it was like, okay, this guy, and he's the son of a Massachusetts politician, which really does explain a lot about him.
Had I known that he was born into a political family, I would have known that it would have confirmed to me that he's all about himself, that he's fake, and he doesn't love the people that he represents and he works for. And I never would have picked him to play Texas in the SEC championship game this year. And to credit Ethan, who's not here, in the preview show this year when we talked about college football and mainly the SEC, he looks at us and he goes, I love everything about this LSU team, but I cannot trust Brian Kelly. And this is why they're not going anywhere. So credit to Ethan for getting this one right. I unfortunately was wrong in this aspect, but that happens.
Well, and the other part of it was too is so like that Friday, Zach Martin, former All-Pro, future Hall of Famer, who played for Kelly at Notre Dame, they were asking, part of my take guys were asking him about they were asking him about what Brian Kelly was like. He's like, how often you talk to him? He's like, well, I haven't really talked to him since I was done playing. And you kind of started to see that spew out a little bit more on social media that there wasn't a real backing. A lot of people defending the guy, saying like they're doing this wrong. Where you saw that when James Franklin was fired, you saw that when Billy Napier was fired. There were guys rushing to the defense of those some of these fired coaches. Sam Pittman, for example, that loved Arkansas, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
You didn't see that. You hear a lot more stories about, I don't really have a relation. I don't really talk to Brian Kelly once my playing days are done with him. And especially in the environment that we are in now, where kids, I still believe, and I'm a coach myself, kids want to be coached hard. They want to be held accountable. They want to be coached hard, but they also, at the same time, they still want to feel that love, that you get from the coach. That, it's not all negative all the time, the berating. Like, sometimes you're going to get your butt chewed, but for every time there's a butt chew and there's another, that same coach is going to be on the field clapping and ecstatic for you when you do something the right way.
And a smack on the butt, or a, hey, I'm proud of you, or you did this job. You got better today from where you were yesterday. That positive reassurance, not a dictatorship that I think Brian Kelly tries to run. And I truly do believe Brian Kelly only is out for Brian Kelly.
Well, and you've heard stories. I mean, if you go back to the Robert Saleh, Matt LaFleur days when they were GAs at Central Michigan, and they thought they were going to a party, and Brian Kelly says, nope, you guys are parking cars. Yep. And they had to stand outside in the cold the whole night and then go be the valet parkers.
Yep.
And they made the decision when they got back to their apartment that they shared that I think they didn't have lights or something like that. That if they ever were to get to that level one day, they wouldn't run their programs that way.
Yeah. And I think another telling aspect of how Brian Kelly's time at LSU wasn't going to last was when you have former players who wanted to come back and speak to the current team and the players now, but Brian Kelly didn't let them come back in the offseason. When they were doing spring practice or summer workouts, when you're with your team and you're doing that team building, when you're working as hard as you'll ever work in your life in a college football offseason workout program, Brian Kelly didn't let the players come back. But then also in return, Brian Kelly was never around for those summer workouts.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have been
There's
coming out of
a lot of horror stories
about how
how
he just liked the status of being the LSU coach.
LSU head coach.
He didn't want that. He just wanted the status of being the LSU coach. He didn't want all the extra things. Like, you look at a guy like Ed Orgeron, who he replaced.
Yeah.
That man is about as LSU as you can get. He loved LSU. In a sense, it didn't work out, but he also had the connections. He had those relationships where Brian Kelly really didn't seem all that interested in doing it.
And also, I heard someone say, which I agree with now after thinking about it. I didn't think about it at the time, but Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron, what do they all have in common? Yeah, they all won national championships at LSU, but also they had the love for Louisiana.
Yep.
There's no other college program in America to the extent of LSU where you have to love that state.
Because it's just LSU in that state.
It's just LSU in that state.
That's what's unique about that job, and I think that's why it's so coveted.
Exactly. It's because you're not competing with another university. Like Penn State, that's a great job. It's a great fan base. They're boosters. Sorry to bring up boosters, but it's college athletics nowadays. I have to bring up boosters in the money aspect. Penn State has a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs who donate to that university. But also, at the end of the day, there's the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. You have to compete against another top-tier program, and Pitt's playing well right now. You have Georgia Tech. Look at them at the top of the ACC. Yep. They're competing with Georgia now. The state of Florida, Alabama has Auburn. South Carolina has Clemson in South Carolina. The state of North Carolina, it's more of a basketball state, but still, you have those 3 schools in that 20-mile radius competing for a lot of good players in that region.
Yep. And the other part of too is you go back to I'm glad you brought up the Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron. One thing you could say about those LSU teams, those were tough. Those were you had to strap your helmet up and get ready for a 4-quarter game because they were so tough. And when Brian Kelly came in, who said goodbye? The key to behind all that success, and Tommy Moffitt, their strength coach, who went to Texas A&M, which I guess, everything always comes full circle, because when he left and took the job at A&M, his main goal was to make A&M as tough as LSU was. And you look at it, and Brian Kelly, those teams, they weren't tough. They weren't physical.
But also look at how disciplined that Texas A&M team is.
Yes.
Now. That's the one thing that nobody wants to talk about, and that's why I remember Urban Meyer said this most, and I will remember this until the day I die. The 3 most important coaches on your coaching staff is not your head coach, not your offensive coordinator, not your defensive coordinator. It's your offensive line coach, your defensive line coach, and your strength and conditioning coach. And like you said, Brian Kelly fired Tommy Moffitt in the middle of the night. He said, "Get out of town." He went over.
After he told him, he was told he was going to keep
him. But to keep this on Brian Kelly and more LSU and kind of the failure that this organization was during the Brian Kelly era, that's what I don't understand. Because look at his Notre Dame teams. His Notre Dame teams were always tough. They're always physical, and they played fundamentally well. They just lost games when they ran into other teams with just maybe 2 or 3 better players, but they were always right there.
It was always the skill guys that they were.
It was the skill guys that they were missing, because between Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson and Joe Alt, and look at all those tight ends and all the offensive linemen and good defensive linemen that Brian Kelly and linebackers put in the NFL during his time at Notre Dame. That's what I don't understand at LSU. How did that not fit?
Maybe it was something of he looked at his shortcomings at Notre Dame, and he felt like he had to be aggressive and go out and get the flashy receivers, the flashy quarterback.
Yeah.
And they didn't emphasize.
Well, also maybe because Brian Kelly has spent his whole life in the Michigan, Cincinnati, Indiana area in his coaching tree.
Yep.
Maybe he just didn't mesh well with the players down in the southern part of the United States.
It could have
because
been.
It's a whole different country, and it's a whole different region, and it's a whole different culture.
Yeah. You mean a fake draw wouldn't get it to a...
Yeah, a fake draw, and just, how we act here in Minnesota is going to be completely how you act different in Louisiana and Mississippi and Texas. Maybe he just didn't mesh with them players, which is why this was an ultimate failure too. That's just the one thing I never understood. What he did well at Notre Dame, he couldn't transfer over well at LSU. Like, look at that LSU offensive line last year. They could pass block like there was no one else's business. Look, Will Campbell at New England is honestly, you could argue he should be offensive rookie of the year.
He's been
phenomenal. I know people want to say, "Oh, look at Sunday, Myles Garrett." That's Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
The dude's an alien. You're gonna have games like that, but when Will Campbell has figured it out after week 1 and week 8 were a little tough for him, he's been great. You could argue he should be offensive rookie of the year. And I'm not crazy when I say that.
No,
but
it's a shame. You know what? This is a we're gonna make pushes to make offensive lineman rookie of the year podcast.
Yeah,
because like you said, O line, D line, strength. That's what wins you games.
And look at the team that I used to formerly root for, being the Iowa Hawkeyes.
You're kind of coming back.
I may be coming back around because they're showing some improvements of having an identity, an offense, and a team that's fun to watch. But ever since they fired Chris Doyle, I'm not getting into that because I don't know the answers. It hasn't been the same program. The offensive line and the running game has gotten weaker. The defensive line's not as strong and dominant as they used to be. That is such a position in such a coaching hire that you need to get right. Look at when Nick Saban was at Alabama. He hired his guy, and he was there the whole way. 6 national championships later.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it. Urban Meyer down at his Florida days. He hired some psychopath who probably ran in prison before, but look at how tough those teams were. And
midnight lifts, baby.
And look at, they lift in the morning.
they lift right away in the morning.
And even Kirby Smart, his first national championship year at Georgia, when they went to the national title and they lost to Alabama, people forget their semifinal game. They had to fly cross country, play a 2 overtime battle against Oklahoma. They got back, I think, Tuesday morning because the game was Monday because it was New Year's Day.
Yep.
What did Kirby have his guys do 6 days before the national championship? Heavy leg day. We're getting on the squat rack. You need that toughness in your program, and losing Tommy Moffitt was huge.
Yep.
And he didn't have it.
Yep. Well, I mean, we, I think that's the biggest key to success. I mean, you look at NDSU throughout the years; they've had a constant Jim Kramer as a strength and conditioning coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is the key and the man. Some of the things that he has been able to do over the years, and teams have tried to come poach him, but he's stayed in Fargo, and I think everybody is thankful for him. We've been fortunate to have some NDSU guys on, and they've told us some stories about some Kramer workouts of what they've had to do, and we've seen them because we've been there while the guys were there. I remember guys telling stories about some of these Kramer workouts.
I mean, these guys are truly bona fide psychopaths.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And it honestly puts you in perspective.
Would you want to fight one of them?
Not a chance. Like they think that's hard, which by God it is, because there's about 2% of the population that could get that done. But then to take it to the next level, Dylan, not to make this about the U.S. military, what about these Navy SEALs?
Yeah.
Like, my God, what they go through, because you have these college guys that think they could do that workout, they couldn't get through 20 minutes of Hell Week.
Nope, they'd be ringing the bell fast.
So big time.
Because we'll stay on topic here. Let's move over to some other coaching firings. We talked about James Franklin when it happened. Since then, though, Billy Napier was fired at Florida. It was never this at this point. Florida they should have never fired Dan Mullen.
No, they never should have.
It was a horrible decision at the time. I said that at the time that they shouldn't have fired the guy because Dan Mullen, he had a down year where they went 9-3, 8-4.
They went 8-4 because the year before, that weird.
The COVID year, they played for the SEC. They should have been in the playoff if we don't have a shoe gate. If we don't
throw a shoe gate, because then they would have been undefeated, lost to Alabama. And then it's funny, Brian Kelly's Notre Dame team would have been it.
Yeah.
Florida would have been playing Alabama again the next week
in
the 1-4 game. It's kind of funny how that worked out, but yeah, he went 8-4, and he had a couple bad losses or weird
There's a
losses.
couple of one-score games.
Yeah, where it just went pear-shaped for 6 weeks, and then Florida overreacted, and apparently they also turned on the TV and they went to the History Channel and they thought it was 2006 to 2009, and Urban was still there. But just Billy Napier was just, nothing against him, but he doesn't seem like the head coach who should be at the all-time high, the highest of the highest FBS levels. He's the kind of guy who should dominate the group of five.
He was, and I think his biggest failure was he tried to be offensive coordinator and head coach.
Yeah.
Where I don't believe he had a very experienced OC that was able to run those meetings during the week and be able to handle kind of the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
That, a head coach that he was taking on as head coach and offensive coordinator, where, you don't see it very often, where, you see it a little bit more now, but for the most part, I think you look at Ryan Day last year, I think the reason they won a national title is because he had a guy like a Chip Kelly who was able to run good meetings, and Ryan Day was, when the defense was struggling, he was able to go sit in those meetings and really sit there, challenge Jim Knowles, try and figure out what they would do, have those discussions of, Jim Knowles had Ryan Day in his back, so, our weaknesses are this. How would you attack it as a play caller? Billy Napier wasn't able to have those meetings. The defense at Florida was still really good. But I think he just was too overwhelmed trying to be head coach and play caller, and he wouldn't give in to his stubbornness was kind of ended up what costing him.
Yeah, and it's just these coaches, the ego-ness that they have is way too big. And it's just the Florida's offense, it lacked that identity and spark. Because you look at the talent on paper, I say talent, because I don't know anymore how to grade these college rosters, because look at
you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't.
Just because some kid is a 4-star player out of high school, well, we got to take that with a grain of salt. We don't know anything about him, but there was just no offensive creativity that got you excited.
There's no identity.
There's no identity, and he couldn't ever consistently get the quarterback position figured out, where this team said, hey, I can believe in this guy. Go back to last year. Graham Mertz was playing well, and then unfortunately he gets his knee rolled up and he has the ACL injury against Tennessee, and then DJ Lagway comes in at the end of the year, and it looks like he's got a spark, and it saved Billy Napier's job. But still, when you're coming into a year and you look at Florida's schedule, and you have to be perfect, but when and then you lose like they did to start this season,
and the brutal schedule they
have, and the social media buzz around there, it's going to affect your locker room, and it's going to affect your team, and it's going to affect you as a head coach and a play caller and an offensive staff, knowing that in the back of my mind, I'm going to have to pack up my family and we're going to have to move.
Yep. There's plenty of coaches right now that are, as we talk, Sam Pittman was let go at Arkansas. This would be just a hilarious thing to happen because Bobby Petrino's the interim coach.
Oh.
And you know what? If they win one of these games that they're not supposed to, and I think the wheels have already been set in motion because he let a bunch of guys go that week.
At the defensive staff.
Yep. And they win one game they're not supposed to, there's going to be a strong push for him to be the next head coach at Arkansas. And you know what? I'm here for it.
I'm going to look up their schedule right now.
And
you know what that win is going to be? I already know it right now. Oh boy. So they play Mississippi State tomorrow. They should win that game.
They could win that
Fayetteville. It's you know what? If it's a combination, if they beat LSU, of their last 4 games, if this Arkansas team can go 2-2 against Mississippi State, LSU, Texas, and Missouri, that's his job.
Oh yes.
If he goes 3-1, it's over.
It's signed, sealed,
done.
delivered.
Signed, sealed, delivered. After
he'll have a contract. He will have a press conference that Monday. Press conference going into that final game against Missouri. It won't be a press conference previewing the week ahead or recapping of their week before. It will be a contract extension announced.
Yes.
Not Brian Kelly. Bobby Petrino
Petrino.
back coaching at Arkansas.
And also, those games against LSU and Texas are both on the road.
Yep.
So if you win in Tiger Stadium and at Darrell Royal, and that is your 3-game winning streak, signed, sealed, and delivered, you're the next head coach
Yep.
of Arkansas.
Yep. And there's in the SEC. I'm trying to sit here and think. I said for a long time that Mark Stoops should retire a Wildcat. I unfortunately think his time is going to be coming to an end. I think
so.
Once it was announced that he was on a plane to be the next head coach at Texas A&M, and the Aggie fans, smartfully revolted against it. It was basically, it felt like
they Clay Travis, Greg Schiano.
Yes, it felt like this was that relationship that Stoops had with the Kentucky fans, it wasn't the same.
And then around the same time, they were losing that relationship with John Calipari.
Yep. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but it feels like there's got to be a change at Kentucky. South Carolina, where Shane Beamer.
They're going to give him one more year.
I think you have to.
You have to, because they're so banged up.
They are.
There's injuries everywhere, and Lenore Sellers is only a sophomore. Right?
And the truth about the program is it's South Carolina.
It's South Carolina.
It's not like they're going to be. The harsh reality is they're not a year in year out SEC competitor.
They're a good year for a great year for South Carolina, 9-3.
Yes.
If you can get to 10-2, depending on your schedule in the SEC, great. But they're not a college football playoff team. They're a 7-5 to 9-3 team with a passionate fan base, who the only thing they have down there for football wise is South Carolina football. And just because they're in the SEC, they think they're better than what they actually are. You know what? Comparing to this school, they're kind of like the Iowa Hawkeyes of the Big Ten.
A little, I would.
A little bit, maybe not as good.
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern on a good year.
Yeah, I would. I was gonna say Iowa would probably be a good. I would say kind of what Illinois is now under Brett Bielema.
Yeah.
That would probably, I think, would be maybe a comparison. Is they're not going to be that dominant team year in, year out.
Yeah.
I think you get the right quarterback in where you can get an NFL quarterback and you get some good pieces around him. South Carolina this year they don't have the running game that they had last year. It was a big part of the reason they were able to go 9-3. Probably should have went 10-2 because they should have beaten LSU last year.
But also, you know what? To Shane Beamer and your staff and your team, if you want to become that program in the SEC that is a 10-2 team that can fight to be a college football playoff, we cannot have these coulda, shoulda, woulda moments. It's why didn't you win that game?
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel bad for these teams where I'm like, we should have won that game. We should have done that. At some point, you have to do it.
And then there's rumors going around that he could potentially go back to where he grew up. Virginia Tech job is available, which is just crazy to think that they since Frank Beamer has retired, they just have not gotten the coach right. I thought Justin Fuente was doing a good job and he's fallen off. Last year they had really high expectations, returned 20 starters between the offense and defense, and then they lost to Vanderbilt, which now looks like it doesn't look like a bad loss.
Not at all.
But they just have not seemed to be able to get things done right. They're a very proud program, very proud tradition, but there's just something that they got to figure out they got to get back to. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is bringing back Shane Beamer, but maybe it's just something that they just completely get away, because I do think some of their hires after Fuente left were Shane Beamer hires. Or disciples, or Frank Beamer disciples, maybe. I'm not for certain.
Also when you, I forget the name of their past head coach, but when that's your first job, that's such a big jump. Just hiring. If some consulting advice to athletic directors out there, just because someone is an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator at a big Power 5 school, that's a big sexy program like Penn State, doesn't mean they're ready to be a head coach in the Power 5 or now the Power 4.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that you have to do that you don't know about until you're thrown into the fire. You hear about NFL coaches talking about this all the time, where randomly on a Wednesday you're handed a bomb by your media team that you have to handle. Well, when you're Aaron Glenn and you're preparing for Sam Darnold in week 7 compared to actually running, you don't hear about these issues that Dan Campbell has to take on until you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And especially at the college level now, where you're dealing with recruiting your roster year round, you're talking to boosters about this guy in the transfer portal, how much can I pay him on NIL, worrying about your offensive game plan. Oh, we got to worry about this other team's fake punt, or they like to do this on special teams, which is an aspect of the game that nobody of us will ever have an understanding of unless we're at it at a high competitive level. That I don't think that's necessarily a good hire.
Yeah, I
If
remember.
you're just going to hire someone just because he was at a big school when he hasn't done it before.
I remember Coach when Tim Polasek got the job at NDSU. Craig, he was telling the story about how Craig Bowl told him, he's like, I'm a little disappointed that you're going to be a head coach because some of your best attributes is coaching. Where now 80% of your job is not coaching, and you're the CEO. You're doing a lot more macro level things. Another funny story is when Chris Kleiman, he was coaching his first game at NDSU against Iowa State. It was right before half, and the clock was kind of running down, and one of the coaches was like, Coach, do you want to take a timeout? And it was like, oh, that's right, I'm in charge of calling timeouts now.
Exactly.
It's a simple thing, but even, and you know, now that I brought that story, that was like when I was, this is obviously a small level, but like even at like junior high, where I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, sometimes you don't look at the clock, and if you look at coaches that are the ones that are also calling the plays, I mean, if we go up to the NFL, you know, for the longest time, the biggest knock about Andy Reid as a head coach was his clock management.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a tough job, and that's why I think if you are a head coach and if you're a head coach and you are also the play caller, you really got to have your poop in a group, because you have to be so organized, because you have to know what's going on at all times and really lean on your staff to make sure things are going smoothly Monday to Saturday, or Monday or Sunday to Friday.
And you know, Dylan, I'm glad you brought up Andy Reid. And you notice when his time management truly got better, it was in Kansas City. Yes, it coincides when Patrick Mahomes was your starting quarterback, but that has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with Steve Spagnuolo coaching your defense.
Yeah.
Where you look at that, Dylan, you have 2 head coaches on your roster. When that defense is on the field, if you're not talking to your quarterback, you trust him to call your plays, and you can look at that clock.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say, end of the first half here, I deferred to get the ball to start the second half. I'm going to take my first timeout before the 2-minute warning at 2:20. I'm going to take my second one at 2:14. And then I'm going to let it go down to the 2. I get the ball back, and I have a timeout with me. That's why it's also with Brian Kelly, it maybe didn't work out, and these other coaches, because you don't have good assistant coaches around you.
Yeah.
To your point, the people you trust at the NFL level, Monday to Saturday, and college, Sunday to Friday, you just don't have it. And I think some of these coaches end up doing too much, and they get burned out.
I think another part of this coaching, especially once you get to those higher levels, and it's a lot more prevalent in the NFL compared to college, but a lot of the NFL coaching circles is a part of it is you have to deal with owners,
Yeah.
who a lot of times make you they don't let the head coaches hire their own staff. A lot of it is holdover from the previous regime.
Mm-hmm.
It's also where a lot of it is good old boys club.
Oh,
where
absolutely.
it's like you have connections, and it's like, here, I'll give you a job.
How many NFL coaches and college coaches do I see just get recycled through again, where I'm like, he failed here, it's not going to work. We need to branch out and realize maybe this guy's not good. When you're a receivers coach at 4 to 5 different NFL teams, maybe we need to sit back and say, this guy's not a good receivers coach.
Yeah, but
I mean, come on. you know, like you go to the Senior Bowl every year, you see the same NFL teams run the same drills with these college kids. And you know who's coaching at the Senior Bowl? Shitty teams. Because they haven't played an NFL game in 3 weeks.
Yep.
So it's to your point. Yes, it's a stressful job and there's a lot to it, but you have to have those uncomfortable conversations and realize that maybe these assistants aren't what I think they are. And as the head coach, try not to take on too much responsibility and don't let it consume you because it will consume.
Yeah. Some other coaching openings. Mike Gundy was let go after a 20-year reign.
I forgot about that.
Great. We really haven't gotten to discuss a lot of them, so I figured it worked out that we're gonna kind of discuss it now. He was let go. I think it's still a very desirable. It's a solid job. I think just the message kind of got stale. I think you see a lot of these coaches where Gundy, a very old school guy. And I think he just kind of didn't want to deal with some of what it takes to be a college coach right now.
I look at Dabo Swinney. I'm not saying Clemson's going to move on from him, but to your point, the message got a little stale.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, you need to evolve. When you have the same message that worked in 2015, maybe it doesn't work right now, and you need to re-evolve yourself as a coach every 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that you look at, like, with a lot of these coaches that have had success. I mean, Saban, as rigid as he was, he adapted over time.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Day, ever since losing to Michigan last year, he looks like a different coach. Guys have talked about how he has gotten better. You look at, like, when Michigan went on their run after COVID. Joe Klatt talked about how he had worked with 2 different Jim Harbaughs while he was the head coaches. The one before the 2020 or the pre-2020 season, and then after the 21 season, because he talks about how in the 21 meeting, the first meeting of the year, where he was sitting there, like, it was basically pretty much, hey, one word answers, and then after that, Harbaugh was talking about how things were going, how the flight was, how Joel's kids were. Talking about other things outside of football where it was like he was a lot more open. Harbaugh was a lot more available than he was in the past. I mean, I'm trying to think though, looking at some of these coaches. I mean, even Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart is, just as good. That same thing as his ability to adapt and, make changes as needed.
But, Kirby's running into this spot right now in Georgia where teams have kind of figured his defense out. And also, his defensive coordinator, his defense has slowly kind of gotten worse every single year since Dan Lanning left. That 22 national championship team, that was still the players Dan recruited.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at his defense since then, 23, 24, now 25, it's getting slowly worse and worse and worse on there. And maybe also he's losing some different assistant coaches, some graduate assistants aren't there. But I look at Georgia's offense. Yes, they're still a wagon and they can't be stopped. But when they're playing, like this year when they played Alabama, when they needed a score, they couldn't. Kirby needs to evolve on the offensive side of the ball now.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of getting to where Saban was in 13 and 14 pre-Lane Kiffin. That just shows how dominant Nick Saban is. We can only talk 2 seasons between national championships.
Yeah.
and he was a failed kicks field goal away from, let's be honest, beating Florida State and winning in 2013.
Yes, that would have been the only three-peat.
That would have been the only three-peat in a long time. But Kirby needs to adapt, I think, on the offensive side of the ball now, where guys like Gunnar Stockton, God, he makes, but I say that, but he needs to make plays when he has to, but
and he has this year.
He has this year, but can he do it in a playoff setting? Couldn't do it against Alabama this year at home. We'll see.
Yeah, we will. And I just spent last week kind of glazing Gunnar Stockton, just about his toughness, how much his ability. But I mean, you look at Georgia. Georgia against Ole Miss, previous 10 years, they put up 43 because they wanted to.
Yeah.
This year they put up 43 because they had to.
They were able to.
Because Ole Miss scored 35, which, we could talk a little bit here. Since we're on the discussion of fired coach, I think we've gotten all of them covered to an extent. there's a few that I think are going to be on the move because, Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, it's bad.
That's a marriage that's not going to last.
It's bad, and we love that hiring.
Oh yeah, I was worried. Back then as an Iowa fan, I thought the wagon he was building at Cincinnati, he'd be able to bring those players with him. That good recruiting tie in the state of Ohio.
Yep.
You look at what Wisconsin was under Paul Chryst. Oh, I was terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't worked out. But also, he hasn't been able to figure out an offensive scheme. His offensive line is getting worse. Now that begs the question: did they lose their strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah,
I don't know. Did he say, if you fire Chris, I'm out? Because this is a totally different. Also, not keeping Jim Leonard.
Yep.
That was the biggest mistake.
Well, and he was in the running for the head coaching job.
Jim Leonard probably should have gotten the head coaching job.
Yes, or they should have never fired Paul Chryst because very similarly to Florida, had a couple of bad years, but we're still that solid and is an 8-4, 9-3 program. That's what when I look at Wisconsin. That's what I look at.
And Paul Chryst took them over the top.
Yeah.
He got every ounce out of that orange and had some pretty damn good orange juice for the people of Wisconsin, and they took it for granted, and they thought they were a program that they weren't.
They were eating wine and cheese with their pinky up, since we're talking Wisconsin.
Exactly, and it wasn't that.
It wasn't.
It was not that.
It was Milwaukee's best light and molded cheese.
Molded cheese.
I don't know what a bad cheese brand is.
There's really not a bad cheese brand unless there's mold on the cheese.
Yeah. You could probably say some like Family Dollar cheese brand, but
for the most part, a good cheese is hard to beat.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
very true.
Like a couple years ago at an ex-girlfriend's house at Ethan, she hosted us over and she made some burgers, and she got the nice fancy California wine cheese, that. A little more bougie, and I thought
bougie.
Words
that I never thought would come out of Grant's mouth.
And
there it is. You're seeing it live on YouTube.
Bougie, and I thought it was a little dry and didn't taste good, and I thought the cheap Crystal Farms pepper jack was better. So to your point, there's not a bad cheese, but if it becomes moldy, it's a bad cheese.
Yeah, that's true. But
to your point, we got all the coaching hirings over, but there will be a lot more openings, and there will be some openings that come when coaches take these jobs that we don't see.
Which brings up, I'm glad you brought that up, because you see a lot of the names that are being brought up right now. You see the Lane Kiffins, the Clark Lees of the world,
Eli Drinkwitz,
that are in really good situations right now.
Yeah.
Or Kurt Signetti just got signed to a big contract. Matt Rule just upped at Nebraska. You're seeing these. And there's a lot of it where you look at these guys, and it's like they look at these jobs, and it's like, well, we lose one game, they're gonna want me fired.
Exactly.
If I lose a game, we've been losing for 30 years. This is great, winning 8-9 games a year. We got a good fan base, good crowd behind us. Sometimes it might be hard pressed to leave.
And also, if they eventually expand this playoff to 16 teams, 9 wins,
you're in. Which they are talking about.
Which they eventually will. If there's one thing we've learned in sports, if they talk about something, they'll find a way
to get it done. And it could be potentially, why stop at 16? They could potentially be going up to 20, 24.
The highest they'll go would be the FCS.
So.
At 24.
Yeah. And even expanding the FCS playoffs, especially now.
That's a bad idea.
When they took it from 20 teams to 24, I thought it was a bad idea, especially because that was when all, your Jacksonville States, your James Madison, your Sam Houstons, some of those perennial powers in the FCS
are now gone.
All moved up to the FBS, hopefully NDSU one day, and then I don't have to discuss whether the FCS has too many playoff teams or not.
Because you don't give a shit.
Yeah, which I still hear or see on Twitter, well, if NDSU, they've had multiple chances to go. No, that shows the invite, because I can guarantee you if we got an invite today,
they take it.
We'd be moving. And I hate to break it to you, Group of 5, if NDSU were to jump up, they would be taking your playoff spot too. Saracen Ratings right now has NDSU ranked number 30 right now.
In all college football?
Yes, that's what the Saracen Ratings are. And yes, they have NDSU ranked 30, which is the highest Group of 5 team there is.
Yeah.
So It would, which would
Because you're telling me that NDSU team wouldn't have given Penn State last year a better fight than Boise.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they definitely would have. Or even SMU when they played Boise.
Yeah.
They would have played Texas better than Clemson played Texas last year.
Yeah. A game nobody talks about, everybody has forgotten for good measure. But
yeah,
there are some other coaching potential openings as Michigan State, the Jonathan Smith experiment just isn't working out.
I feel like that's working out.
I think he didn't realize. I thought it was a little bit of a lateral move for him, maybe. Where
I also think he saw the writing on the wall, and he saw Oregon State being out of the Pac-12.
That could be too.
And you know what? We haven't mentioned this yet. These coaches, gosh, they have egos. And he didn't want to be coaching in the Pac-12 or the new Mountain West.
Yeah.
So he took a move to a school in a Power 4 conference, in that I think he thought his ego and his arrogance got in the way there.
It could have been. I think he underestimated how much of a passionate fan base Michigan State is, or Big Ten.
Yeah.
More of a step up it is from, Corvallis, where he could have went. He could have easily had gone 6-6 to 9-3, and that fan base would have been happy.
They'd have loved him.
Living fat and happy. Where it's Michigan State, where they aren't too far removed from the D'Antonio era, where they were winning 8-9 games, and outside of that, though, realistically, they really haven't been. They've been a 6-7 win program most of the time, and they care more about beating Michigan than if their team wins.
Michigan State could go 2-10, but if they beat Michigan, it's a great season.
Well, or if Ohio State beats Michigan, it's a great season.
Yes, they just hate Michigan.
Yes.
Which is the ultimate sign that you are a little brother.
Yeah.
Don't care what Michigan State fans can say. Yes, Mike Hart said that in 2007. The record since then might be fairly close, where Michigan State has an advantage. But you pumping that up on your chest just proves you are a little brother. So to the people of East Lansing, sit down, you suck. Nobody cares about your horde program.
Yeah, and just what's going to happen when Tom Izzo leaves. The bully is going to be back. Also, fun fact, Michigan, I still believe, has the head-to-head record in basketball.
And it's only going to get better because Dusty May is a hell of a coach.
Yes.
But, Dylan, also, you mentioned Jonathan Smith. We're not working on Michigan State. Another coach, I could finally see this school moving off him at the end of the year, Mike Norvell at Florida State. That just doesn't seem like that marriage is working out. He got lucky 1 year in the transfer portal where they were right on everybody. But I think besides that, he hasn't been able to, his message hasn't been able to get across. And for whatever reason, the players in the state of Florida are not buying into him. And also, his offensive line and his defensive line can't compete in the ACC.
No. I think that the 23 year where they, right or wrongfully, got left out of the playoffs because Jordan Travis got hurt, he just has never been able to rally the troops, which is really concerning. Because that Florida State last year, they were not a 3-9. On that talent-wise, were they going to compete for a playoff spot? No.
But should they have won 8 games?
They should have won 8 games. Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that they just never bounced back from that, and looked like there was just absolutely zero fight in that team. That's where you start to have questions.
Okay. And to those Florida State fans, when they say they got robbed of a playoff spot in 23. Okay, fair, because Jordan Travis broke his ankle. Unfortunately for him, because that ruined his football career.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sad. And was it against North Alabama too, or something like that, or the week before they played Florida?
It was the week before they played Florida. It was
whoever it was, some meaningless game, but we saw them play against Louisville in the ACC title game. You want to tell me that Florida State team is going to go out and play that national championship Michigan team, and they're going to compete? No, they're going to lose 42-10.
Well, and I'm lucky. They never got to that.
They never got to that.
I mean, you saw the video after Michigan found out they were playing Alabama. How there was some nervousness, which I didn't sense. It was a lot of people that were just shocked that the committee actually put Alabama in under.
No, Dylan, I'm going to give Chris credit to your Michigan team that year. That was a straight up business trip. They didn't care. They knew they were playing Alabama or Florida State, and they didn't want to sit in that watch party. They wanted to go back to playing football, or maybe enjoying some days off, maybe studying before the finals.
Okay, I gotta give this to you. It was North
It
Alabama.
was North
Grant.
Alabama. Let's go.
So it was, and frankly, I didn't care after Michigan beat Alabama because Michigan won.
Yeah.
But had Alabama beat Michigan, I would have said Florida State should have been over at Alabama.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we do as college sports fans,
Yes.
is we make things favorable for our narrative.
And I will say this, there's going to be another opening, not because I think this coach is going to get fired, I just thought of this, but you know how we talked about earlier in the show, people maybe don't want to coach in college sports because it's really hard right now? Boston College, Billy O'Brien, there's no way he wants to stay there.
No.
So he's either going to retire, or he will go to the NFL and be an offensive coordinator.
You could see him being you could kind of see him being like that Chip Kelly type, where he just goes and be an offensive play caller in college, or goes back to the NFL.
I could see, you know what? Now I'm pulling something out of my ass here. He's from Boston. He's a Northeast kind of guy. Depending on who the new head coach at Penn State is, I could see him going back there as a play caller.
Yeah, maybe. That is something to look at.
Or even, saying somewhere in the Northeast. Also, now, hypothetically speaking here, the rumor has it Joe Brady might be a candidate to be a head coach at Penn State or at LSU. The Buffalo Bills need an offensive play caller.
Yep.
Sean McDermott would love that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who also would love that? Josh Allen, because then it would be someone who could challenge him and wants to throw the ball down the field vertically.
I hope they get a return to Hard Knocks. That would bring some juice as we get some Billy O back on.
Billy O back on the mic.
Lot of swear words. You probably couldn't let your kids watch it.
Oh
but
God, that would be entertaining.
But I would love. I'd be entertained for sure. So, I'm trying to sit here and I was thinking of some other potential coach openings.
I really wonder about Maryland. Do they think Loxley's the guy? But also Maryland, maybe they need to self-assess as a program and say we're 6-6, 8-14.
Yeah.
Can it get better than Mike Loxley? I don't think it can.
Nope.
I mean, depending on how Auburn goes, but I think they're going to give Hugh Freeze another year. I think you have to.
That's another program that should have never fired Gus Malzahn.
They should have never fired Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, he didn't beat Alabama enough. He was 3-6.
3-6.
What's your record since he's left? Exactly.
0. I can't think of any other. I mean, there's going to be a surprise firing that doesn't make any sense.
And we're going to see some jobs opening up just because of people leaving.
I will say this: if there is a year, I know we're in the state right now, and Dylan and I are not Gopher fans. But if this is the year PJ Fleck leaves, it's right now.
Where do you think he goes?
I could see him going to Virginia Tech.
That could be
that would be the.
That would be a good fit there.
He wouldn't. You know why? Because he kind of has that Frank Beamer, Jim Tressel, lunch pail, blue collar kind of worker coach.
Yep.
To him, he wouldn't want to go to Arkansas. Because if you ask me as a head coach, his philosophy wouldn't work in the SEC.
Well, so here's something to think about. Arkansas job is available.
Yes.
Drake Lindsay.
He's from
Arkansas.
He's from Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Drove by
that stadium every day.
Yes, on his way to practice.
I will say this: if PJ leaves, it'll either be Arkansas or Virginia Tech.
Okay.
And also, he's gotten, if you ask me, the most juice out of the orange here in Minnesota.
Yep.
And you know what? He is a good recruiter. Players love playing for him. His problem is there's just a lack of talent because you get your players in a 300-mile radius from your university.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against us here from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota.
We have our uses.
They're
in the 3-point stance.
They're in a 3-point stance or they're on the ice.
Yep.
Our best skilled players in Minnesota play hockey.
Yeah.
I think PJ, if he got the right offensive staff, could do well at Arkansas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also but that's why I say Virginia Tech. A lot of talent in that Virginia, Maryland area. He brings that blue collar, hard nosed working mentality there. And for the longest time, Frank Beamer, they had that stupid, broken, old gray lunch pail. So he could bring that row the boat mentality, and the people of Virginia would buy that in because that's what had them success.
Yep, and we would see some real juice for Enter Sandman.
That would be the most electric entrance in college football. His
Again,
first game of the year when they play James Madison, I'm watching that.
yep.
And you know what? I think he would look good with his tie and those Virginia Tech colors.
Yeah.
With the orange and maroon. So if PJ were to leave, for me it's Virginia Tech.
Okay. All right.
And I think he brings Drake Lindsay with him. Still.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing.
Him and
I know a lot of Arkansas fans were not happy that he got snatched away from.
And who you write someone a check big enough.
Yeah. But I'll put you on the hot seat, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Head coach at LSU next year.
I'll tell you who it's not going to be. It's not going to be Lane Kiffin.
No.
No.
Okay.
No. I think they're going to take the Texas A&M approach, and they're going to hire a guy who was a head coach before. He's built a culture. He's built a program up. His players like him, and he has sustained success. And you know what? He is right now is in a fertile recruiting area in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I think they're going to hire the guy from SMU.
Ooh, Rhett Lashley. Okay.
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
Yep, good offense there at SMU. He's got a strong culture. He's built that program up, but it's kind of hard to compete in the ACC. And I do wonder if these coaches had egos. I'm going to say they make the move from SMU to LSU.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. What about Penn State?
Whew, that's a tough one. Because I don't think.
I'll let you think a little bit. I will say for LSU, they're gonna stay in the state of Louisiana. Go hire John Summerall out of Tulane.
That was my other choice. Yep. You know what? I mentioned to him a little bit ago, and I think he's gonna be crazy to leave Josh Allen and James Cook, but I'm gonna say Joe Brady.
Joe Brady. Okay. All right. There it is.
I'm gonna say Joe Brady.
It's such an intriguing job to me.
Yeah.
Because James Franklin felt like he was a lifer at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Then they fired him, and for me, it just doesn't seem like they have a great plan in place to replace him.
They don't.
And some of these candidates that you see, and it's like, is that guy really going to get you over the hump?
They're replacing James Franklin with the James Franklin minus.
Mm-hmm.
If James Franklin was a B+ head coach, at best they're gonna get a B.
Yeah. You know what, this is one I struggle with as far as who.
And I struggle, because Pat Narduzzi's not gonna leave Pittsburgh.
No.
Greg Schiano's not gonna leave. Well, they couldn't bring him back.
Yeah.
From what they've been through before.
Yeah, I don't know. Joe Brady might be the best option. Why not? I'll say Joe Brady.
I'll say Joe Brady.
Florida Gators.
Ooh, that's another tough one. I honestly think Florida they'll realize they need some stability. They haven't had that in these last 5 years. I think they hire from within the SEC and hire Eli Drinkwitz.
Ooh, okay, you got Eli on the move.
Yep, Eli on the move.
Huh. Interesting.
It's going to happen, something like that. You're going to poach schools from someone else in your conference.
Yeah. Now, at the Gator, you know what? For the plot, you know what? I'm going to say they're going to go back to Dan Mullen. They're going to do the Happy Gilmore going back to Chubbs. They're the worst. He's the best.
Mm-hmm.
They're stupid. He's smart. And they're going to go back and they're going to hire Dan Mullen because why not?
They're going to hire Dan back?
Yep.
I can see that happening.
Yep. And then, I don't know, that's kind of the big ones that we got.
Well, what about the University of Arkansas?
Arkansas.
I already said PJ Fleck to Virginia Tech.
You said PJ. You know what? Again, for the plot, Bobby Petrino.
I think we agreed on that. Bobby Petrino.
And there's going to be a clause in his contract that he can't ride a motorcycle.
That's fair.
Allegedly. Alleged motorcycle.
Alleged motorcycle.
There's some interesting things that you could go look up and see what we're talking about here that we're not going to discuss. But we'll kick it over to you, Grant, for curveball of the week. What do you got for us?
Yep. So I was just wondering, Dylan, kind of a profession for work, your job career. What is one, maybe industry or field that you see people that they get into where you're just like, I don't get it. That just seems boring, and I don't understand why you want to do that.
Ooh.
Not because it's a hard job or you don't like it. It seems boring.
Seem boring?
Yeah.
Ooh, being an accountant.
Fair.
Being an accountant.
Yeah, I know the money's good in being an accountant.
Yeah.
Once you get in there, that's the thing. The money's good.
I just don't think I have the ability to sit in an office all day, every day, from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I would go insane. I'm someone that I gotta be up on the move. I gotta be moving around. I gotta be interacting with people.
I'm with you. Hey, I got this question because on Wednesday this week at work, I had to do...
Or like one of those like data analysts where you're looking at spreadsheets all day. No way.
I had to do 3 hours of computer-based training all day, and I wanted to pound my head against a concrete wall. And it got me thinking, I'm with you. If I had a job where I had to sit at the computer all day, I would quit that job in 2 days.
And don't get me wrong, there's days where it's nice where all you got to do is sit there, but there's times too where it's like, okay, I gotta go. There's something.
I gotta be moving.
I gotta move. I gotta do
move.
something.
Yep.
Where it is that would definitely be
Yeah.
it. But I think that wraps up our first ever in-person episode.
I will say this for me, my profession, English teachers.
English teacher.
I've never understood it. I'm gonna sit back and I get excited about writing and what a comma is compared to a semicolon. I don't get it. Maybe I just wasn't smart in school and was never good at English and was never a good writer.
I was the opposite. I was like one of my favorite because I liked writing. I was actually going to be a journalism major.
Mm-hmm.
Part of maybe that's the reason why we're doing this, but we're not. I would not claim ourselves as journalists.
No, not at all. I'm not Tom Rinaldi.
No. No. We just kind of. I think podcaster is the correct term. Is
I agree.
we like to say things that just kind of come out of our mouth. Sometimes our mouth thinks faster than our brain, and we getting ourselves into trouble. So journalist is not it. We're just guys that love talking ball, and that's the reason for this show. And we appreciate everybody who tunes in each week and still listens to us for as much outlandish things as we say. So thank you guys who have tuned in. Thank you guys for listening and made it all the way. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You follow us on all of our social medias, and we will be back next week sometime. So we'll talk to you then.